I never thought I'd be that guy, the guy who gets blindsided by his wife's betrayal right when I'm already at my lowest. Honestly, I thought I knew everything about Emily. We'd been together for 6 years, and I always believed we had some kind of genuine connection. She was the kind of woman who could charm anyone, sharp-tongued, beautiful, and seemingly loyal. Or so I thought. Things weren't perfect, sure. Ever since I lost my job a few months back, she'd been more distant, snapping at me over small things, but I just chalked it up to stress. I was barely holding it together myself, trying to figure out what to do next, so I never pressed too hard. But then came the anniversary dinner. We planned it for weeks, something nice, just us, to celebrate the time we'd spent together. I was trying to keep things normal, pretending everything was okay. I even bought her that expensive necklace she'd been eyeing. We sat at the restaurant, laughing, drinking wine, pretending we were the happy couple everyone thought we were. But in the back of my mind, I felt a weird tension, like I was waiting for something to happen, though I didn't know what, and then I saw her. Or more specifically, I saw him. Tom. Tom's my best friend, been friends for years. We've always been tight, shared everything. I never thought he'd cross that line, not with Emily. But there he was, sitting across from her, leaning in close, whispering in her ear like they were the only two people in the world. His hand was on her thigh, and she was giggling that stupid, fake laugh she does when she's hiding something. I froze. My heart dropped straight into my stomach, and everything around me blurred out. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. I just stared at them, stunned, trying to process what I was seeing. That moment felt like a punch to the gut. It was like the entire foundation of my life had just crumbled in front of my eyes. I kept thinking, how could she do this to me? How could she betray me so ruthlessly, right on our anniversary? I wanted to scream, to yell at her, at Tom, to make them stop, but I was rooted in place. I didn't want them to see me, and honestly, I didn't know what to feel. Anger, heartbreak, disgust. I sat there, watching them, feeling everything all at once, but mostly just feeling numb. I knew then that everything I believed about her, about us, was a lie. The shock didn't wear off quickly, and I spent the rest of that night replaying everything I saw and heard. I kept asking myself, how long had this been going on? Was I just blind, or was I so wrapped up in my own problems that I missed all the signs? She had been acting weird lately, canceling plans last minute, coming home late, always making excuses like work stress or needing me time. I brushed it off, tried to be understanding, thinking maybe I was overthinking it. But seeing her with Tom like that, it all made sense in the worst way. When I got home later that night, I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing with thoughts of betrayal, disgust, and a deep, burning anger I'd never felt before. I kept thinking about all the times she said she loved me, how she'd promised to be faithful, and how she'd always insisted she was done with Tom after they briefly dated in college. She lied. That's all it was. She lied. And she lied to my face for months. The next morning, I knew I had to confront her. I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay when I'd just seen her with him. I waited until she was getting ready for work, her phone buzzing with messages I knew she'd ignore. I took a deep breath, grabbed her phone from the nightstand, and started scrolling through her messages. My stomach churned when I saw the texts, flirtatious, suggestive, full of promises. I found one from her that said, "Can't wait to see you tonight, I miss you already." I felt like a fool. My hands trembled as my mind raced. How could she be so reckless? When she finally came out of the bathroom, I was already waiting for her in the living room. She looked at me with that bitchy smirk she always wore when she thought she was right about something. I looked her straight in the eyes and asked, "What is this? What have you been doing?" Her face twisted into that fake mask of innocence, her eyes widening just a little too much. "What are you talking about?" she said, her voice dripping with false concern. "I don't know what you're accusing me of, honey." I held up her phone and her face paled. The jig was up. She tried to deny everything, said I was paranoid, accused me of mistrusting her after everything she's been through, like I was the one at fault. But I wasn't stupid. I knew she was lying, she always did. Her words were slippery, full of deflections and excuses, but her actions told a different story. I felt a mix of rage and heartbreak, the kind that makes your stomach churn and your head pound. I wanted to scream at her, to shake her, but I just looked at her and said, "How could you? After everything we've been through, how could you do this to me?" Her reaction: she shrugged, rolled her eyes, and looked away like I was inconveniencing her. That's when I realized she knew she'd been caught and she didn't care. That was the moment I understood. This wasn't just a fling or some mistake. It was a full-blown affair. Tom and Emily playing with my trust right in front of my face. And the worst part, she seemed to enjoy the power she had over me. Like she was rubbing it in. That's when I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just let this happen and pretend I didn't see. I had to plan how I was going to make her pay for this, and for the way she'd betrayed me when I was already breaking inside. After that confrontation, I was a mess. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, and I definitely couldn't think straight. My mind kept circling back to everything I just uncovered. Her lies, Tom's involvement, the fact that she'd been cheating on me for who knows how long. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious all at once. I wanted to rip her apart, to make her feel as worthless as I suddenly felt. But at the same time, I knew I had to be strategic. This wasn't a situation I could just lash out in. I needed a plan, something precise, something that would hit her where it hurt most. I spent the next few days gathering evidence, digging through her phone, looking for more messages, trying to understand the full scope of her betrayal. I found texts from Tom, too. Flirty ones, suggestive photos, even plans to meet up again. Soon, it was like peeling an onion, each layer revealing more dirt, more lies. I realized that her little "I'm so busy at work" or "I need some space" excuses were just cover stories for her secret meetings with Tom. She'd been lying to everyone, including herself. Meanwhile, she was still acting normal around me as if nothing had changed. But I could see it. Her eyes had that guilty but defiant look, like she was daring me to call her out. I knew I had to do something bigger, something that would force her to face the consequences of her actions. I didn't want a messy fight or some emotional outburst. I wanted her to know that I wasn't going to let her get away with this. She'd ripped my trust apart, and I intended to make her regret it. So I started plotting. I knew she was planning to go out with her friends that weekend, something she did every Saturday night. That's when I decided I'd set my plan into motion. I called a private investigator to follow her, get some proof of her meeting Tom again. I wanted everything on record, photos, video, the whole 9 yards. I didn't trust her to slip up on her own, so I took matters into my own hands. It felt dirty, yeah, but at this point I was past the point of caring about playing fair. I needed her to see that I knew everything and that she couldn't keep lying. Meanwhile, I also reached out to my own contacts, people I knew who had experience in this sort of thing. I wanted to be prepared for her next move, whether she tried to deny everything, spin some new bullshit, or even turn the tables on me. I knew I had to stay one step ahead. The goal wasn't just to catch her, it was to make her understand that she'd crossed a line and that I wouldn't be the one to pick up the pieces anymore. I was done being the fool. I was done being played. And I was already planning how I'd expose her, how I'd make her regret ever messing with Tom and betraying me. The aftermath of all this was going to be a storm, and I needed to be ready to weather it. The night I decided to follow her, I felt like I was stepping into a war. I did want to fight, but it was clear I had no choice. I watched her leave the house, her face with that calculated smirk, and I knew she thought she was untouchable. I parked a block away, kept my distance, and watched her meet Tom at that sketchy downtown bar they always went to. The moment they saw each other, their faces lit up like they'd been waiting for this moment forever. Tom looked just as guilty as she did, and I could see the way they touched, whispered, and leaned into each other. It was like watching a scene from a nightmare. I managed to get some pictures, crisp, undeniable evidence, while my stomach turned inside out. My hands trembled as I took them, realizing that what I saw was real. I stayed hidden, watching them for almost 2 hours. They didn't leave until late, both looking flushed, happy, and somehow even more guilty. When they finally parted ways, I followed Tom for a bit, just to see where he went. I learned he lived just a few blocks from us, which made my stomach churn even more. The next day was brutal. I confronted her again, this time with everything on hand, photos, videos, the full scope of her lies. She tried to gaslight me again, said I was crazy, that I was just paranoid because I'd lost my job. She even had the nerve to say, maybe I needed this, maybe I was just waiting for the right person to come along. Her words were bitter, her tone defensive, but I wasn't buying any of it. I'd seen enough. I knew her true colors now. She was manipulative, selfish, and utterly ruthless. She didn't care about the damage she was doing. She only cared about covering her ass. I felt an overwhelming mix of disgust and heartbreak. How could she take her own marriage, my feelings, and just toss them aside like they were nothing? I trusted her for so long, believed in us, and now I saw her for what she was. A liar, a cheater, someone who'd play with my life like it was some game. I didn't even know who I was anymore. All I knew was that I couldn't stay silent. I had to do something, not just to punish her but to protect myself from the kind of pain she'd caused. I started making plans. I contacted a lawyer, looked into divorce options, and prepared myself for what was coming. I knew I couldn't fix this. Not with her, not anymore. The thought of ending things seemed devastating, but honestly I felt relief, like taking a weight off my chest. I was tired of pretending, tired of the lies, tired of being the fool. I wanted her to face the consequences of what she'd done, especially with Tom, who I now saw as nothing more than a traitor and a coward. The most painful realization was that I still loved her. Somewhere deep down, I wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, she'd see what she'd lost. But I knew it was too late for that. She'd betrayed my trust irreparably, and no apology or explanation could fix what had been broken. I was hurt, yes, but I was also angry. And I knew I'd find a way to move on, stronger, wiser, and maybe even better without her. The decision to leave her wasn't easy, but it was inevitable. I spent days sorting through everything, packing my things, gathering my thoughts, and making arrangements to move out. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of seeing me break down, but inside, I was shattered. Every memory of us, every promise we made felt like a dagger twisting in my chest. Still, I knew that staying wouldn't fix anything. It would only prolong the pain and give her more power to manipulate and deny. When the day came to finally confront her with my decision, I was calm on the outside but a storm inside. I told her I was leaving, that I couldn't stay with someone who had lied and cheated so ruthlessly. She looked surprised at first, then annoyed, then downright furious. Her bitchy smirk returned, and she started with the usual lies, telling me I was overreacting, that it was a mistake, that she loved me, that she'd never do it again, but I didn't listen. I'd heard enough bullshit from her to last a lifetime. I calmly told her I gathered enough evidence to prove her infidelity and I was done playing her game. The breakup happened quickly after that. She tried to guilt-trip me to make me doubt my own feelings, but I was past that point. I knew the truth now. I knew she'd betrayed me, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate me into staying. I moved out, took most of my belongings, and left her standing there, seething with rage, still trying to deny everything. She screamed, called me every name in the book, but honestly I was numb to it all. The only thing I felt was relief. Relief that I was finally free from her lies, her bitchy attitude, and her betrayal. Living apart from her was a rough transition, but it was necessary. I stayed focused on rebuilding my life, finding a new job, reconnecting with friends, and slowly healing the wounds she'd inflicted. The thing I realized during this process was that I'd learned a lot about trust, about who people really are, and about my own strength. I used the evidence I'd collected not just to end the marriage but to protect myself emotionally. I didn't want to be a victim anymore. I wanted to be the guy who learned from his mistakes and moved forward. The most painful part was accepting that I might never fully understand why she did it. Was it just the thrill? Was she unhappy with me? Did Tom manipulate her? It didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that I learned to let go of the anger, the pain, and the betrayal. I had to forgive myself for trusting her for so long and forgive her for what she did. The scars are still there, but they don't define me. I know now that I deserve better, and I won't let anyone treat me like that again. Looking back, I wish I'd caught her sooner, saved myself the heartbreak, but I also know that this experience has made me more cautious, more aware of the red flags. If I could give any advice to someone in my position, it would be this: trust your gut, but also protect yourself with evidence. Don't ignore the signs, no matter how much you love someone. And most importantly, never stay in a relationship where betrayal is happening, because sometimes the truth is the only way you'll ever really heal. Now, here I am, months after everything fell apart, trying to piece my life back together. Honestly, it's been a brutal ride, full of anger, confusion, and a whole lot of regret. But it's also been eye-opening. I've learned that trust is a fragile thing, something you can't take for granted, especially with someone you think you know inside out. I used to believe that marriage was about loyalty and honesty. Turns out, it's also about being vigilant, even when you think everything's fine. What hurts the most isn't just the betrayal itself. It's the feeling of being so completely blindsided. I thought I had her figured out. I thought I knew what love was. But I was wrong. And now I realize that sometimes the people closest to you can hurt you the worst, especially when they hide their true selves behind a mask of charm and manipulation. I've started trusting myself more. I've learned to listen to that little voice inside that tells me when something's off. I've also made peace with the fact that some things are better left in the past. I don't hate her anymore. I just feel sorry for her. Sorry that she chose to betray someone she supposedly loved. Sorry that she lost her integrity over some fleeting thrill. The biggest lesson I take from all this is that revenge isn't about revenge anymore. It's about reclaiming my dignity, my peace of mind, and my self-respect. I refuse to let her define my happiness or my future. I've cut all ties, moved on, and I focus on building a life that's honest and true, things she clearly couldn't give me. To anyone out there feeling betrayed, my advice is simple. Don't ignore the signs, confront your demons, and don't be afraid to walk away. Sometimes, the pain of ending something is the only way to start healing. And believe me, you'll come out stronger. You will learn, you will grow, and eventually, you'll find someone who values you for who you really are, someone deserving of your trust, loyalty, and love. That's what I'm holding onto now. Not the pain, but the hope that better days are ahead.